In this video, we're taking a deep dive into customer acquisition cost, the number that will have you doubling your money like a forex trader using a lot size of 20, or have you filing for bankruptcy. So for the next 10 to 15 minutes, we'll be talking about how you can use this number to fatten your young pockets. And if you currently have zero distractions, we can go ahead and move on, and I can actually tell you what is a customer acquisition cost. So it's basically how much it costs your business to get one new additional customer, and it is honestly that elementary. Although I understand that the process of getting the actual figure, and also the importance of the figure, and how you can actually use that number to increase your income and profits, is way more intricate than that simple definition. So before we actually do that, I want to actually take you through the entire process of actually using that number to your advantage. Now we're on one of the two softwares I use to actually map out any flows or funnels for my agency or for my clients, and it's actually Lucid Chart, the other one being Funalytics. Now we're on the actual chart, so let's talk about it a bit. So the first step is the research, right? And in the research phase, you're basically just optimizing your funnel, your pages, optimizing your message, or it could even be researching any sort of keywords or interest that you want to target. And then after that, you actually go ahead and test what you've optimized or researched and see if it's even profitable. And while testing, it actually takes you into, while actually testing it, you need to be ensuring that you're tracking all the results to ensure that you get an accurate KPI to use. And when I say adjust KPIs to what your tracking sheet says, by KPIs I mean basically, well, in this sort of situation, your KPI would be the actual customer acquisition cost. And now I'll go more in detail about actually calculating your customer acquisition cost. But when we actually come in and look here, you see that after you've actually gone ahead and tracked all your numbers and how many customers you've gotten, how much you've spent, then you can actually go ahead and start adjusting your KPIs to what your tracking sheet says, right? So maybe for one ad creative, the customer acquisition cost generated from that specifically is, let's say, 5,000 Rand. And maybe you create another ad, or you create another sort of flow in place to actually get a customer, and that flow is getting you a customer at around 3,000 Rand. And then you create a third one, right? But then the third one fails, as it gets you a customer acquisition cost of around 8,000 Rand per client. So basically, the third sort of funnel or the flow you create gets you one new customer at 8,000 Rand, even though the first and the second one were getting you customers for 5,000 and 2,000 Rand. Then you basically know at that point that you need to kill the flow that is generating you a client or a customer at that 8,000 Rand a month, 8,000 Rand per client mark, because at that point you know that KPI is way off point, and you should only be spending around 5,000 or 3,000 to acquire a client for you specifically. And once you have found those two flows, or that one specific flow that is getting you results, that is getting you like the lowest cost in results, but getting you like a high amount of customers, right? Then you know that that's the actual flow or ad that you should be increasing your budget on, or increasing your time on actually scaling, right? And once you've actually done that, you can actually go ahead and take the feedback that you get from scaling that specific how do I word that specific flow or ad. And once you've actually gone ahead and scaled it, and you've actually checked what the feedback is saying, what the market is telling you, or what your audience is telling you, you can go ahead and build new research, or optimize your current funnels based on what you've seen is working and what your audience or market is actually telling you, right? And now the importance of your client acquisition cost, right? Because knowing your customer acquisition cost, actually, I think I'll just call it your CAC, way more faster. But knowing your CAC actually makes it way more easier for you to actually know how much you should be spending to acquire one new client, or how much you're willing to spend to acquire one new client. And why I say this is, once you know what your customer acquisition cost is, you can now move on into actually deep diving and understanding what the LTV, the lifetime value per client or customer is, right? So for example, if I were to pick a dentist, right? Now let's say a dentist, right? So you go to a dentist let's say once every 6 months, right? So you go to a dentist twice a year, and both those times when you do go to the dentist, you spend around, let's say, 20,000 rand for each time you go to the dentist. So in total, you're spending about 40,000 rand per year on your dentist, right? And you stay with that specific dentist for around 15 years, and then after that 15 years you might consider getting another dentist, or after that 15 years you just don't ever go to the dentist again, right? So you can actually calculate by saying, okay, 40,000, because you spend 40,000 rand a year on your dentist, so you can actually say 40,000 times that by 15 gives you a specific number. I haven't actually calculated it, so for argument's sake, let's say that number is 1 million rand, right? So now let's say that number is 400,000 rand, right? Because I know it's not 400,000 rand, but for argument's sake, let's say it's 400,000 rand. Okay, so the average lifetime value of a customer for a dentist would be 400,000 rand, because a person spends 40,000 rand per year on the dentist for 15 years, which equates to 400,000 rand. They wouldn't mind spending 50 to 100,000 rand to acquire one new client or customer, because they understand that in the long run their client will be worth way more than that, right? So like, honestly, they wouldn't mind spending 100k to get one new client, because they know that, well, by 15 years I would have made a profit of 300,000 on that, because, well, that person is worth 400,000 to me in the long run, right? And once you're honestly able to understand these sort of things, you actually start to understand why people like Tony Robbins, Grant Cardone, Ty Lopez, you actually understand why they are willing to spend what they do spend on their ad spend, or should I say what they do spend to actually acquire a new client or a new customer, right? Because when you look at people like Tony Robbins, Ty Lopez, Grant Cardone, they're willing to spend $100 to acquire one new customer who only spend $20 with them for the first 5 months, right? Only spend $20 with them for the first 5 months, because they understand that within 12 months, that one new customer would have spent around $300 on them, right? So they're in the red for like 5. So basically, for like 3 to 5 months, they're in the red with that one new client they made. They're making a loss on them, but they don't mind making that loss, because they know that within 12 months that person would have spent $300 or $500 on them, meaning that they make a profit of around 200 to $300 on like that one new customer specifically. And when you actually go into competition with people like this, you actually realize that if you don't have the revenue or the cash flow in place to sustain that sort of long-term thinking, then you won't survive being able to run ads against that sort of market, because they're literally willing to only make money 12 months down the line, whereas you need to make money right now. And once you actually understand your customer acquisition cost, it actually gives you a fighting chance against people who are in the long-term thinking, because once you actually understand your customer lifetime value and your customer acquisition cost, you're actually able to think long term, because you understand that in the long run, well, you're still going to make a profit out of your new customer or your new client, right? And now, how do you actually go ahead and calculate your customer acquisition cost? Now, calculating your customer acquisition cost is pretty simple, whether it's you calculating it for your own agency or you calculating it for your business, because maybe you're a local business or you're an e-commerce business owner. Now, there are 2 parts to actually calculating this, and it's prime cost plus the actual sales call cost, right? Now, if you're a one-man team and if you don't have any sort of sales rep, like I also don't have any sales rep, then the only thing you need to focus on is the prime cost. The prime cost being how much it actually cost you to get that customer on, like to actually get that customer, right? So as I was saying, let's just hop onto prime cost. So now that prime cost is out of the way, I'll sales call or the sales rep cost. Now this is the actual commission you pay your salesperson after they actually go ahead and close a new customer, right? Now in the agency space, or actually should I say in the entire world of sales reps, the average commission they get is about 10%, or should I say it's about like 5% all the way to 20% is the average sort of commissions you could be giving your sales rep. But I've done a bit of research when I considered actually getting a sales rep, and I've actually found that it would be way more beneficial for you to probably give them 40% all the way to like 25% on commissions, and that way it lets them feel as if they are a shareholder in the business. And this is just something I actually stumbled upon when I researched. It's a great substitute for giving them like shares of my agency, or should I say shares in my agency. But yeah, that is what I stumbled across. The next thing is know your numbers. See, you need to be able to keep track of your ads or keep track of your flows and actually understand that understand where your customer is coming from. And there are a ton of ways you can actually do this. You can actually ask them yourselves where they come from, or like where they heard about you, where they actually found out you even exist. right? And this is something you should be doing if there are like multiple streams of, like there are multiple flows of where you get your actual like appointments or customers, right? And now actually understanding where they come from helps you understand like which flows or ads to double up on, and which flows or ads to like kill, or at the very least just like pay them less attention. And once you actually have this down, you can actually focus on 3 points. Like these are very, 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 very important. Like I know people who have multiple things on their like business manager. They have like multiple KPIs that they look at, and they be like, nah man, I have to look at like 10. I look at like 10 KPIs before I make a decision on closing an ad, or I look at like 10 KPIs before I even think about optimizing an ad. And this even falls into like flows, whether it be inbound or outbound sort of systems of getting clients. This falls into both spectrums. It doesn't just include ads. But I suggest, or not just me, people like Warren Buffett said himself that if he needs to look at more than 3 KPIs to make a decision, or like if he like comes into, or like what, like I don't know, like if he wants to invest into a company and he sees that that company is using more than 3 KPIs to convince him to invest, then he isn't going to invest into that company. Because adding more KPIs doesn't mean being more accurate. It's very much similar to entropy, because actually having multiple KPIs won't assist you in making better decisions. It'll just create more disorder. But the 3 KPIs I recommend you look at is customer acquisition cost, cost per lead, and cost per call, or cost per ad to cart. Because those 3 things are the main KPIs to any sort of ad you create out there. If you actually gone ahead and found any value in this video, you can go ahead and click the button right underneath me to subscribe to this channel. And